Why'd you have to bring it up? As you're like that one student that like asks if you have homework and then you make us have homework.
You shouldn't have asked me if I had any fun questions.
Welcome back to another episode of Romancing the Monsters. I'm Em.
Hi, I'm S.
I'm Seth.
And S is still a little poorly, so, we're going to try to cheer her up today with some Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas.
Woo, woo. We're starting our historical series.
Yes, girl. This is the kickoff of our Wallflower read-along, so if you have always been planning on reading the Wallflower books by Lisa Kleypas eventually in your life, now is the time to do so, because we're going to read them all, starting with Again the Magic and ending with Wallflower Christmas at Christmas. So, you have that to look forward to. And as per usual, we're going to read other stuff in between. So, do not worry if you're not interested in the Wallflower books. I mean, if you clicked on this episode, I'm guessing you are. But, in case you're not, there will be other stuff in between. All right. Again, the magic. McKenna, Aline, Olivia, Gideon. We get 2 love stories for the price of 1. What is it about, Seth? Tell us everything.
All right. Okay, so the book kind of starts off with a chapter that's filled with heartbreak. We meet McKenna, who's a stable boy and was brought into the house as a young boy. He started off, working as a servant, and then he slowly made it to the stable boy position, and then it kind of went from there, and he meets Aline, and McKenna and Aline kind of hit it off right off the bat, and like they've just become best friends since they were kids, and like all up until like early, I guess, adulthood. Anyway, so of course they have feelings for one another, but because she's, I guess, a lady in society, she's obviously expected to marry a man in high standing, and McKenna clearly is a stable boy and has no blue blood within him. Things happen, and while they do have feelings for one another, her dad ultimately finds out, and we know this Westcliff isn't our Westcliff. He's not my man Westcliff, and he is evil, and obviously doesn't want his daughter to be seen or be around a man of lower standing, and he pushes her to send McKenna away, and how she does this is basically tell him that she never loved him, and it was just a game for her, and she just wanted to explore and experiment. Obviously, we know Aline's heart is breaking. And McKenna leaves filled with anger because of the betrayal that he faced and he experienced because of Aline's words. Aline, heartbroken, and she's depressed, and she just wants to have any sign of McKenna in her life, and the lovely housekeeper says that she has a note or a letter from McKenna.
Miss Fairchild.
Yes, Miss Fairchild. And Aline goes to find this letter with Miss Fairchild, and ultimately she gets burnt in a fire in the kitchens. And it sounds brutal, but then we jump ahead 12 years later, and McKenna is back. And he's a rich businessman, and we also find out
he is delicious. He is dark. He is
hot.
Mysterious.
Yeah. And not only is he a rich businessman hoping to get some connections in London and get some sponsors and people to pay for things. No, he is back for revenge. He wants revenge on Aline for breaking his heart and making every other woman seem inferior to her, and he's never really been able to move on from her. So not only does he come for revenge, he also came with his friend Gideon Shaw, who's his partner, and Gideon is known to be dependent on the alcohol, but he's known to be a real looker. He encounters Olivia, which is the youngest.
Well, Gideon is the heir of a very, very, very rich, American fortune.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's an heir in America.
He
and
comes from a very troubled family of people that kind
Yeah.
of hate each other.
Yeah, they sound
apparently.
awful.
Yeah, they really do.
Anyways, he kind of catches the eye of young Olivia, who is the youngest Marsden sibling. So there's Westcliff, Marcus, my husband. And then there's Aline is the oldest sibling, though. So it's Aline, then Westcliff, and then Livia. And we find out that Livia has had a tough past. She kind of had a fiance. Well, she didn't kind of have. She had a fiance. She got pregnant from said fiance, but then her fiance sadly dies, and she also loses her child as well. So she's kind of suffering from like the society's opinion on her. But anyway, she gets caught up with Gideon, and then their story kind of goes forward from there. And that's kind of the setup of the story.
So we all have already read this book before.
Yes.
Once, I believe. Have you read it more than once, that Steph?
I think I've only read it once.
Okay. So it was our second time for everyone here. I will say the first time I read it was only in 2017 because I didn't know that this book existed, which is a real problem.
I don't know when I read this. Let me check.
Because the cover for this, there's like a blue dress and everything, and for whatever reason it reminds me of a cover from the Hathaways.
Yeah.
So every time I would see this cover online, I was like, oh no, I've read that book, until 2017, where I was like, why is it marked as unread? Like, I'm pretty sure I've read every Hathaway book. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was a completely new book, and I was mind blown by how good it was and how I've missed out on this for years and years and years. So yeah. And this was S's first historical romance, wasn't it?
Yeah, first ever. That you recommended. And I read it the same year as well.
Oh,
2017.
sometimes my recommendations are good.
Oh, shut up. Your
I
recommendations
am
are
met
usually
with
good.
Success.
It was really good to the point that I ended up buying like 10 to 15 historical romance paperbacks. And that was it. That was the last time I read a historical romance. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on like the other Wallflower books. I will say that before going into my opinion of the story. But I loved it, and I read this book actually in 2015, but I read the Wallflower series, so like what I guess the original 4, and then I went back to this one. So I like you guys, I didn't really know that this book existed or it was even part of the series. So I went back after I read the original 4 books.
Yeah, I think I did the same. I read the original 4, then years later realized that this existed, read again the magic, then went and read Wallflower Christmas, because again, didn't know that book existed.
Yeah, I think I read that one after as well. I think I saved it for Christmas because I was like running low on Lisa Kleypas books. So I was like, I'll try to savor this until Christmas.
How did we like our reread? Let us discuss.
I love the shit out of mine. I'm sorry. It was so good.
For me, it was a good reread. I fell in love with the story again.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that Olivia and Gideon had their story in this. I completely forgot about them, so it was nice to revisit them. And
I agree with that. And I feel like the emotions for me were still very much there. And I felt the angst, the love, the heartbreak. I felt it all with these characters. And I didn't feel any less. I still love this book so much coming out of it. And I'm curious, you said you don't usually do rereads, or when you do, you kind of like the book less. So how did you feel about this book, reading it again for the second time?
Well, what I did to try and prevent myself from, not liking the book, which I don't think would have happened, but, to prevent it, I did the audiobook instead. So I read it in a different format than what I, did the first time around, to, try to make the experience feel somewhat new in a way.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. It was a great audiobook, narrated by Rosalind Lendor, who also does all of the Julia Quinn books. My personal favorite narrator for Lisa Kleypas is Mary Jane Wells, but I'll take Rosalind Lendor, it's fine. But it's just such a good freaking book. Like, you don't realize that two love stories are, sort of into one book, like the length of one book, and therefore that means that, each story doesn't get as much page time as, like, if it was like a full-blown, novel by itself. You don't feel that because it's so masterfully written, and the love stories are so good that you feel like you had, like, a huge book that just so happens to have two love stories in them. Like, you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. The pacing is perfect. The characters are just perfect in their arcs, and I just love it so much. And this is where you start. You start with, again, the magic. This is why we're doing it first. You start here, and then you move on to what's it called? Secrets of a Summer Night.
Yeah. I agree I agree wholeheartedly that this is the first book in the Wallflower series. And I was going to ask you girls, how did you feel about having two romances in one book? Do you feel like it was enough time spent on each book? Not each book, each story? Do you think like any of the scenes or couple could have been fleshed out a bit more? But Marge, you kind of answered that already. But as did you feel that way?
I think not the second time around. The first time around, I kind of wanted Olivia and Gideon to have their own. I expected them to have their own book, but after reading it the second time, I didn't mind it. It was fine.
Same. I think I was in the same boat with US because like I felt like Gideon and Olivia didn't have that much page time, but at the same time I feel like reading it now, I kind of appreciate their scenes. They were still important, but yet they didn't like even, I guess, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the couples didn't overshadow one another, and I feel like they had the appropriate page time. And while I would have liked to see Gideon's like struggle and like his eventual overcoming of his dependency on alcohol, I still liked how it was done by the end of the story, and it was kind of like their story was just beginning at that point. Like she was like waiting, and he finally was there, and we didn't see them meet after he's come back from his 6 months of.
That is my one pet peeve. I hate how she just cuts the scene, and you're like, you don't get the reunion.
I know, but I also kind of understand it because it's more or less like another, like it's another beginning for them, like.
I mean, fine, I can get a new beginning and also get like Gideon and Olivia being reunited and like making love, and like I just I needed that scene. Anyways, my one pet peeve with the book. Every time I read it, I'm like, this is so abrupt.
Yeah, I can see that. But no, I really think that Lisa Kleypas did a really good job of balancing both romances as well as like not letting them overshadow the other. And while Aline and McKenna did take like prime time, like the spotlight, I still enjoyed the little tidbits we did get of Gideon and Olivia.
So, can we begin our conversation with circling back to the beginning?
Westcliff?
So,
oh, okay.
You wish. We'll talk about your Westcliff later on.
Okay.
No, I want to talk about so like Seth said there's the whole prologue. McKenna returns. He's like, I'm gonna get my revenge.
It lasts all of 2 seconds.
He has like all these feelings, and he's like kind of trying to prove to himself that like he can get over them, and like he's over Aline, and like Aline is like, sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the decision to have Aline, to have her realize right away what he's up to. Like Aline knows that like he's here for revenge. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about that? That it's not like a secret,
Of her being so accepting?
Well, I guess so, because I just feel like in a lot of like revenge plots, the hero or heroine, whoever is like doing the revenge, it's like a secret. Yeah. That's like kind of looming over the plot, and then eventually gets revealed that like, no, you were just trying to get your revenge all along, blah, 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 angst ensues, whatever. Here, Aline was like, no, I know right away what he's up to.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with it. type of thing.
I think they just had so many issues already to solve that adding this problem would have been a bit too much for them. And I also feel like Aline was never portrayed as someone that is oblivious or someone that doesn't perceive everything around her. She's a very smart young individual. And she's not young. She's a smart person. I don't know where I'm going with this.
She is young.
She is very, yeah, she's
If
young.
she's,
I don't know.
if she's not young, we are old as heck.
She is, yeah, a very smart person, and yeah, so she would pick up on it right away, and it's not like I was gonna say Westcliff. It's not like McKenna was trying to hide his animosity or like his need for revenge.
Yeah, to me, it shows two things. First of all, it shows that the heartbreaking thing about it is that Aline knows what he's up to, and like you said, she's accepting of it because to her, she's like, I love him enough to let him hurt me right now because I know that that's all I'm gonna get from him, type of thing. Like, she needs him enough for that, you know? Like, she's just like, if this is all I get from him, and if he needs to do that to move on from whatever, I'll let him do it, type of thing. So it shows that, but it also shows to me that, it shows to me just how much these two people know each other. That, like, Aline right away is like, I know what's up with you. Like, I know you enough that, like, you can't hide this from me. Like, on an emotional level, you and I are, like, one person. I know why you're doing this, you know? So I think it's, like, a really subtle way of doing that without Lisa Kleypas being like, they are so, like, one person. They know each other so well, blah, blah, blah. But, like, right away, you're like, yeah. She notices it. She knows him. She knows him like no one else knows him. Yeah. Even better than he knows himself. So,
exactly.
So I do love that decision.
Yeah, and despite it being 12 years between the last time they saw each other and now, it's just like they haven't really changed, and like they still feel those same emotions for one another, and like they still know each other on that like that level. And yeah, no. 12 years is a long time though. I was kind of shocked again by the gap. Like, the jump ahead.
So she's what, 30?
She was 32 or 31.
What?
Yeah, she was in her 30s.
Oh, wow, she's a spinster. Wow.
Wow, I didn't even make the connection of, like...
Me either.
The math wasn't there.
In my head, she was, like, 26 or something.
Yeah, late 20s.
No, in my head, I was literally... I went back to the years, and I was like, okay, I gotta add this and this, and then, like, I figured it out. I think she was, like, 30 or 31.
Wow. So he's like, what, mid-30s?
Wasn't he like the same age or older, like by a year?
I feel like, wasn't she older than him though? Because you said that on the prologue, she's 19, 18?
She was 9. Oh yeah, she was 19 and he was 17, right?
But then they mentioned that once he hits, I think in chapter 2 or 3, it mentions that once he hits 18, about his clothes, right?
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying to. So she's older.
There
right?
you go.
She's older. You're right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then he would have been 29.
Oh, look at us reading an older lady, younger man
By
romance.
all of 2 years.
It counts. So one thing I love about this book is actually, you know, we can talk about the male characters all we want, and like Lisa Kleypas does write, you know, amazing male characters, but I do think she also writes amazing female characters, and I feel like it shines in this book how fierce and like both women stand up for who they are and their beliefs. And, you know, a huge part of Olivia's, you know, journey is like, you know, she's finally sort of coming back out into society and opening herself up to, you know, everything that comes with that. And, you know, she still is like, I'm not gonna, you know, accept Gideon as he is into my life because I know that that's, you know, destructive, and I love him enough to, she literally says at some point, like, I love you enough to not accept you as you are right now, type of thing, something like that. Oh yeah, she says, I care about you too much to watch you destroy yourself after his and she says that after his proposal, and he says, "Take me as I am," and she replies, "Perhaps I could if I cared less."
And I do love that she, or Lisa Kleypas in this instance, highlighted that she didn't want Gideon to change for her. Like, it had to be a decision he made on him, like, by himself. And I love that Lisa Kleypas highlighted that in that passage.
Yeah. But I love how this story sort of touches upon, these two sisters who, kind of had the world at, the tip of their fingers growing up. Like, they were from one of the richest family in the land. They have the Marsden name, and you would think that they would grow up with the most wonderful, beautiful life and marry off pretty young and, have, like, a great future ahead of them. And yet you see how life has kind of changed them both. And, Olivia kind of became a lot more recluse. And obviously, Aline kind of, because of her scars and everything, like, she sees her self-worth as diminished as a result. And I just loved how the book touched upon that. And, like, you had this, like, really subtle, but, not any less important journey for both of them of like sort of reconnecting with who they are and what they want to be, and sort of relearning to put their dreams and wants and desires first, and not let fear interfere in all that. So.
And I agree with that, but I also I wanted to also highlight when Olivia went to London and spent the time with Gideon, she also went to the opera with McKenna. And you've said that Olivia is very much like outspoken. She speaks her mind. She does what she wants to do. And she decides to tell McKenna the truth, which kind of gets the ball rolling for McKenna and Aline for their own relationship. But she takes it upon herself to tell her sister's truth in a way. How did you guys feel about that? With her telling McKenna, actually, she sent you away because my dad told her to do that, and also because I kind of saw you guys.
I don't think she, like, about her legs, she didn't tell him the truth
No.
about her legs, right? Not
just
about that.
The reason or how he was forced out of the house.
I actually like the fact that she owned up to it, because I feel like if she didn't, then
nothing would have ever happened.
Nothing would have happened.
Yeah. Exactly.
I feel like this needed to happen, and since she did play a part into all of that, I feel like she did have a right to be like, because she did feel very guilty about it, and so I feel like she did have a right to say, like, hey, McKenna, like, apologies for what I did years ago, like, I was young and dumb, and I did that, and I'm so terribly sorry, because I know that I'm the reason why everything else happened afterwards. Like, she has a role in it, so I didn't see any issues with her telling him. She didn't tell him, like I said, about, the whole fire thing. And yeah, I kind of feel like sometimes people get to a point, and this kind of connects with what I was saying, like, you get to a point where your life has changed so much and so many years have gone by, and you literally don't recognize who you used to be anymore, type of thing. Exactly. And I feel like for Aline, it was kind of at that point where you don't recognize yourself. And it's scary as hell to change things and realize that, like, what you think is a comfortable life is actually a really sad and empty one. So I feel like Olivia had to step in and be like, here's the deal, and it really made the difference for McKenna. Like, that was all he needed to hear, and he never would have known otherwise, because freaking Aline wasn't ready to say anything.
And it's not that she wasn't ready to say, she just flat out said, I'll never tell him, because she's using the solitude as like a blanket, as like a security blanket. And like, obviously, I'm happy that Olivia did that, but, like, you can also kind of say the same thing. Like, Aline was kind of the person that got Olivia out of her self-imposed, solitary, recluse nature. So, I mean, they kind of did the same thing to one another, but I guess in a different way. And I don't know. I felt like McKenna and Aline needed that extra push from Olivia. But I also did get a flashback. Did you girls see Atonement?
Yes, that's what I have in my notes about the book, about the movie.
I was like, the damn sister again. The same baby sister again ruined this epic romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm happy that Olivia corrected herself and asked for forgiveness for her past mistakes. So
Yeah. So, shifting now, from McKenna and Aline to Gideon and Livia. There's too many
yeah.
names in this book. I'm gonna, I'm gonna confuse people at some point. I want to talk with you guys about, so you kind of briefly mentioned Livia's past when she got pregnant. She miscarried the baby. It was seen as like a scandal because obviously this baby was made out of wedlock. So she was kind of ruined by the whole thing. And similarly, but also very differently, Gideon had an affair at some point with a governess who he was interested in, had a thing for her. They had sex. The governess got pregnant, tried to abort the child, and died as a result of that. There was also like a thing about him falling in love with the girl at some point, and then like the girl went to his father. His father, offered money instead of for her to leave Gideon, and she took the money. She was like, fine.
Wasn't it the same
I don't think
governess?
it was the same person.
I thought it was the
it?
same person.
I don't remember. I don't know. I
It
don't
was kind of
remember.
blurry on that front. I wasn't sure if it was the governess or not, but it's possible. Anyway, all this to say that do you guys find it weird that they never connect on that front, Gideon and Livia? Because there's for sure heartbreak attached to Livia's miscarriage. Not
Yeah.
only heartbreak as far as like the baby, but obviously the man she loved, who was a part of this baby, and that was she. I think she mentions at one point like that was like the last part of him that she had.
Yeah.
Lisa Kleypas never really explores the emotional impact of what Gideon went through, if that makes sense. Like, I was wondering, like, he never says how he felt about the fact that the governess just went out there and, got an abortion, and, like, was he heartbroken by it? I don't know. I don't know what his reaction would have been. And I find it interesting that, like, Gideon and Livia never really talk to each other about that, when it feels like something they might have connected, over.
Do you think maybe for Gideon, since he's in a position of like him and his family are in a position of money and stuff, like that's kind of expected, where the governess was given money to abort and all that, so it's kind of like,
well, it was obviously like you understand why the governess did what she did. Like, they were not married. She was an unmarried woman, and this would have been like a scandal, so like you completely understand why she did what she did. But that doesn't negate what the man can also emotionally go through. Like, Gideon feels to me like a very loving man. So I just wonder, like, maybe he did feel something upon learning that she had been pregnant with his child, and she lost the child and died. And if that was the woman that he loved, which we don't know, if she was, then, I mean, that's even more heartbreaking. Both of them then lost both a baby and someone that they loved.
Could it also be the fact that he's like, he's a drunk, so he's numb to those feelings?
No, oh, there you go. That's what I was gonna say. So basically, so going back to the governess, it wasn't that she just took the money and ran. His dad was also gonna disown him and take away all of his money if he did marry her. So she kind of was like, damn, I'm not gonna be rich, so I'm gonna take the money and go. But for Gideon, I think he did feel the loss of his baby deeply. And I feel like he kind of turned to alcohol to console himself and, like, kind of cope with that. And I feel like his dependency on alcohol kind of stemmed from all, like, the traumas he experienced with, like, his brother dying, him, like, not really being appreciated by his family, him losing the woman he thought he loved, him losing his child. I just feel like it was an amalgamation of all of that. And, like, he used the alcohol to cope. So I just don't feel like he was at that point in his life to talk about his emotions. Maybe we could have gotten that afterwards once he became sober with Livia, but when he said it and when he talked about it, he wasn't mentally capable of talking about it.
That's a good point. Like, he was obviously using other things to cope with everything, so it makes sense, like you said, that he didn't, really talk about it. But how do you feel about, Gideon and his, alcohol issue? This is interestingly something that Lisa Kleypas has done a couple times in her Ravenel series.
Yes.
West also struggles with alcoholism, but in a completely different way, which is what I appreciate. Because here you have Gideon, who, he's a fit man. He's beautiful and rich and, seemingly functioning. He functions as a normal human being. And that's exactly how some people that struggle with alcoholism are. Like, they can do what everyone else does and you wouldn't know otherwise, but they have this dependency on alcohol.
Yeah, it's because he never really stopped drinking. He just kept drinking and never stopped.
Well, it just became a part of who he is, and his body kind of just accepted it, type of thing. But I love the contrast, which obviously, yes, unfortunately cannot relate to, but West in the other books is quite different. Like, his body completely changes. He's useless. He's like a drunk. Like, he's, not aggressive, but kind of just not, fun to be around, type of thing. And that book explores, West's book explores the after part. So, you don't get it here with Gideon, like seeing him sort of after the fact, but I just think it's interesting how she explored that theme with two different characters in two different ways.
I also feel like in the Hathaway series there was the brother. Well,
Leo, but Leo, it's drugs. He's addicted to opium.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was that.
Oh, Leo, love Leo.
Leo was so good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So also, listeners, I also want to do the Hathaway series. So hopefully somehow we get there eventually.
Maybe in 2022. Who knows?
Exactly. No, but I did enjoy having a character like experience like alcoholism and like kind of see how it portrayed, or like, not, I can't speak. What are words? Seeing how it was portrayed, like, let's say the 1800s, I just think it was interesting to see that take, and like it was a different take on alcoholism. I don't know. I just feel like his character was very multi-layered, despite him again not having that much page time.
They also, like, him and McKenna have a very interesting sort of weird relationship. Like, are they friends? Are they not friends? They're business partners, but also sometimes it feels like not. Like, they have like a complicated relationship. I feel like you don't quite know what to make of it.
Yeah. I mean, did you like pick up on anything on that for their relationship?
Well, I mean, now that you mentioned, when I was reading Nope, but now that you mentioned it, yes, and I feel like they get along so well is because they both have their issues.
Yeah.
McKenna has his revenge and Gideon has his alcoholism. And I feel like they don't question each other too much on it. They just accept what they are.
Yeah. McKenna says at one point, one has the strength that the other has as a weakness, type of thing. Like, they are very compatible in that way, but is that friendship? Like, you kind of, I don't know, personally, especially upon this reread, I was like, I don't know just how much of friends they are. Like, they work together very well, and I think that they have a care for each other that's, comes from the fact that McKenna did save Gideon's life at one point. And, I think that Gideon, when he can't, take care of his own companies, McKenna is, right there to do it. But I just don't know, are they friends or are they not? Like, that's an interesting question mark to me.
I think they are. And I think it's more so Gideon depends on McKenna a lot in terms of like the business aspect, but I also feel like McKenna and Gideon also have those emotional conversations, or like they have those instances where they check each other. And like Gideon, for instance, kind of tells McKenna, like, are you sure you can get revenge on her? Like, are you certain that's like what's going to happen? Because I kind of like her and I know that you love her. And then I guess for McKenna, he also confronts Gideon on Livia, and also other aspects of like the business. And I feel like they are friends, but we barely got to see any of it, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. It really is a question mark for me. Um, but you know, that is just a strength of Lisa Kleypas's books. Like, she'll show you so many different friendships, and they're so different. You know, like you have the Wallflowers and how, you know, tight knit they are together, and then she kind of explores male friendship here with Gideon and McKenna, and it's so different and so complicated. And I don't know. It's just, I love how she explores different kinds of bonds. Speaking of interesting bonds that lead to romance, that lead to sex, can we talk about sex?
Yes, we can. Let's get to the deeper conversations.
This book is hot. This book is so hot. Like, I cannot tell you just how sexier sex becomes when there's a revenge plot involved. McKenna, let me tell you something, okay? I feel like some people could be uncomfortable with the relationship between McKenna and Aline in this book. However, let me tell you something. There is consent from point A to point Z. It is all along. There is constantly a question. McKenna is like, send me away, or I'm gonna take this as I'll have you in my bed type of thing. There's always constantly a question and like an out, and she doesn't take it. She makes the choice not to take the out. Exactly. Which allows McKenna to be this like very domineering, controlling man.
He is so assertive.
Yes, but with the out, you know? And I love that little detail that, like, along the way, every step of the way, he's always asking a question. It's never he makes it sound like a demand, but there's a hidden question. And I love that. I love that. Which makes the sex even hotter, because you're like, you get the feeling that it's a little dangerous, but also like not really, because clearly both partners have agreed to the act.
Where were you going with this?
Oh, well, where we are going is the line where McKenna says, you're going to work off your debt on your knees.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
If she doesn't send him away in the morning, he's gonna take it as, all right, you're gonna pay off your debt to me on your knees, on your back. And I was like, oh my god. That is so hot. That is so hot.
It was so hot. I was not prepared. I don't remember McKenna being this vocal.
That gives me he gives me Sebastian St. Vincent vibes on that front.
Really?
You know, it's something, I feel like it's something that Sebastian would have done.
Yeah, I could see that.
What series is he from? Because you always talk about him.
Sebastian, Devil in Winter. This one.
Is this in this series?
Yeah.
Yep, you're getting to him.
He's coming. Literally. But it just feels like the kind of cheekiness that Sebastian would have also done. But like, Sebastian would make it, I don't know. In this case, it's like darker. Sebastian is not dark. He's just a absolute rake.
There was an intensity and a darkness within McKenna that I feel like
an anger. An underlying anger to it that Sebastian obviously doesn't have.
I mean, he does because I think at first he does because he was so confused. He just, honestly, no matter which way he twists and turns it, he never understood why, why she claimed to play this game, or like why she claimed to have feelings for him. He just didn't have the answers until Olivia obviously told him the truth. But he was still intense even after that.
Even during those scenes, Aline always had the control. Even if it didn't seem like she did, she did. She was the one choosing the position. She was the one choosing the place, the time. She was the one making all the decisions, This is the perfect arrangement. McKenna, give me a call, please.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Because obviously she didn't want him to see her legs which we can
Yeah.
talk about. But that was something that, was kind of looming over her. And for her, it worked perfectly because it was like he was giving her all the options for her to not show herself to him,
Yeah.
type of thing. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, how did you feel about the sex? Long story short, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, it was hot. I remember the first time reading it. So one of the reasons why I didn't read historical romance was because I didn't think it was that sexy, or it was.
I really picked the right book to start you off on.
You did, you really
Yeah.
did. So I was shocked that it was that sexy, that it was that hot and forward, and so my perception of historical romance has changed with this book.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm just excited for you to get. I think Sebastian has a dirty mouth, if I recall correctly.
You do not recall? Literally page 6. Freckles. We'll talk about it when we get to his book. Just remember, like, page 6, freckles.
Okay. All right. Make a note right here. No, about the sex scenes in this book. I enjoyed it, and I really liked that Aline recognized her own desire for McKenna,
Yeah.
and she had to find a way to make it work for herself because she was not comfortable with him seeing her legs or even knowing the truth about what happened to her legs. So she had to find a way for it to be okay for her. And their first time was kind of in the forest, in the dark. Her first time, that was the first time she's ever
And
had
she doesn't
sex.
tell him. And he's like, what the fuck? How come you haven't had sex yet?
Right? He pulls that. And
I love that trope so much. I don't
me
even know
too.
why.
And he's like, shit, I caused you pain.
And then the
Yeah.
second time is like against a settee or whatever the fuck they're called, like a chair or some shit, like
Yeah.
doggy style. It was hot. That one was
Yeah.
hotter in my opinion.
Yes.
But yeah.
See, in historical romance, I didn't think doggy was a thing like back in the day. I thought it was just all missionary, all
Oh my
plain
god.
vanilla.
You're gonna have fun reading Lisa Kleypas S. She's got some good sex in her book.
Yeah, Lisa Kleypas, she creates sex scenes in like the most interesting places. But also we did not talk about Gideon and Olivia's sex scenes, and one in particular where he brings out the condom.
He
Oh,
does.
that's right.
Oh my god, so much work for a fucking condom. Can you imagine? Like, he's got one. He bought one, and like, it's a one use type of thing. And like, it's a done deal afterwards. Like, I'm like, oh my god, the work, the effort, the money.
Did you guys ever Google what the condoms?
They are
back in
made
the
out of
day?
intestines. Yeah, no, I would not want that up in me. That is a nope.
I just love, though, how he's like, I brought you a gift.
But she was fully on board. She was like, ooh, okay.
Anyways,
Can we finally talk about my man Westcliff?
no. You're gonna have to wait.
What the heck?
Because first, we can't jump into Westcliff, girl, at the end. Okay? At the end. First, so McKenna learns. I feel like we are all over the place. I'm so sorry, listeners. This was gonna happen. You have to look forward to this with probably every episode from now on. So McKenna learns the truth, and he's like, he has a change of heart. He sends a bunch of flowers to Aline. He's, clearly trying to make up for it, blah, blah, blah. And Steph is so mad that we won't talk about Westcliff right now. You're giving me, like, mean face.
No, I think you need to set the scene appropriately if you're not going to talk about Westcliff. This was not after he found out the full truth, actually. This was after he found out the truth that Livia told him. Continue.
The attitude, my god. She's literally shooting daggers at me. Anyways, so he learns the truth from Olivia, but not about the legs. And then he, does the grand gesture, and Aline is like, oh my god, crying because she knows she can't accept it, type of thing. Like, she can't go forward with this because of her legs. McKenna comes back. He's like, he really wants to talk to her. Like, in his mind, he's like, oh my god, we can finally have this type of thing. And then they have this conversation by the pond, which was like a place that they, used to go as kids. It's like really emotional because of that. and McKenna proposes to her, essentially, and she refuses. Tells him that he's not enough, that she would never marry someone below her, and like she says all the things that would hurt him, basically, so that, you know, he will continue to be mad and stay mad.
It was so heartbreaking because he's like, I'm gonna be vulnerable with you again, and then like I was like, no.
Yeah, and then he was still willing to accept her without her loving him.
Yeah.
Oh, that broke my
I know,
heart.
right? When he said that too, and I was like, I can't, McKenna.
But what really breaks me is when he goes afterwards to Miss Fairchild and he sobs.
Yeah, that broke me too.
He hugs her and sobs, and I was like, oh my god. And like, she literally says that she can see the hate, like, becoming stronger in him, like, type of thing. Like, he's really broken at that point. And I'm like, oh my god, no, McKenna.
It's because like he kind of reverted back to that child that left. It's just like he just doesn't understand what happened. He's losing his best friend and also the woman he loves. Like, they're the same person, obviously, but it's just like, it's just heartbreaking because he doesn't understand what's happening because she's not being transparent with him. And like, I understand on her side why she isn't being that way. But like, for this like strong like man that's like was so set on like revenge, being vulnerable and saying all of these like lovely things and saying that he would love, you know, have enough love for the both of them. It's just like, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Which, to me, when he actually learned about the legs, the fire, the everything, it makes perfect sense to me that he's mad. Like, for her, it's funny because Aline is like either expecting him to pity her or for him to be like overly accepting and like overly lovey type of thing, whatever. Instead, he's mad. He's
or
like,
also disgusted.
yeah, obviously that's, you know. Instead, he's mad because he's like, you have denied us this
For 12 years.
and he literally says something like, because you underestimated my love. And that is so true and so important, that she loves him so fiercely that she would let him hurt her. And yet she doesn't believe that his love is strong enough for the same in return, and for him to love her enough to be like, do you really think I would care about this? He doesn't care.
I know.
He doesn't care. And it takes her fucking brother to be like, yeah, no, I wouldn't care if I loved a woman and she had scars. I wouldn't care. Westcliff.
Now you throw Westcliff in. Hello, you didn't even like set him up. So basically, the only reason McKenna and what's her name, Aline, ended up even finding each other again was because of Westcliff. Let's be honest. Westcliff comes into the room and he's like, Aline, show me your legs. Let me see the scars. And then she shows him. And then he's like, okay, well, yeah, they're kind of bad, but they're not that bad. But like, then he says, yeah, I would, if my woman that I loved had scars, I would still love her anyways. And then they go and like, you know, she finds him again. But I did like that McKenna kind of like flipped it on her, and he was like, what in case I was in like an accident that almost killed me and I was fully scarred? Would you not love me then? And she's like, of course I would. And like, I feel like that's when she finally, like, it finally hit her that like their love was equal, if not, you know, he loved her. I don't even know. I feel like their love was equal. Like, they both loved each other so fiercely.
I feel like us humans tend to do that when it comes to having some type of trauma. We make the decision of the other person and be like, you're not going to accept me like this.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I feel like it does happen a lot.
It does.
Because then you deny yourself happiness, you know, because you just assume what the other person is going to think, most likely based on what you feel about yourself, you know. Because Aline didn't like her legs and she felt really ashamed of them and what happened to her. Therefore, in her mind, she's like, well, of course he's gonna find this ugly and he won't, you know, want me as his wife if I look like this, and nobody else would. And, you know, it's not just McKenna. She literally didn't marry anyone for 12 years because she was like, nobody's gonna want this.
And I mean, this kind of gets into like my monster for Aline, so I don't know if we're in the mood or if like not in the mood, or if we're ready for that.
Are we in the mood to talk about the monster?
I mean, Okay, so for me, I thought the monster for Aline was, I wouldn't even say like pride or vanity. Like it kind of falls into this like under the umbrella, but it's more of like society's perception of women in the 19th century, and that being women were only known, they had to be beautiful, they had to be pure, they had to be rich. And sure, Aline was beautiful. Yes, she was a virgin, and yes, she
I
was
mean, she's
rich.
described as the most beautiful of the Marstons.
Exactly. And like imagine being like a woman that was raised in this time and like knowing that like your beauty is worth something, and if you don't have it then you're nothing. And like she lived that for so long, and like obviously like I guess unconsciously you kind of start believing that and start taking that into yourself and kind of feeling unworthy, or like I don't know, like not finding yourself beautiful or worthy of love because society told you that you're not worthy of love and affection if you don't fit the criteria.
Um, when we did several historical romance episodes before, and all of them, I think, had a scarred hero. And when we did those episodes, I think it was in the Black Beast of Belterre episode, we were like, next up. No, I think it might have been My Darling Duke, actually.
Okay.
We said, well, wouldn't it be interesting to read about a scarred heroine instead? Because, all those heroes kind of base their whole strength and power as a hero, and I mean as a man, on their bodies and what their bodies can and cannot do, and therefore they think that they are unworthy because of what happened to them, type of thing. Whereas we were like, well, wouldn't it be interesting to see how that transfers over to a scarred heroine? Because obviously there's an added layer of it being a woman in, a time period where women's bodies were all that they were good for. They
Yeah.
they were sold pretty much
Basically.
into marriage, and their only job was to please their husbands and produce heirs. So for a heroine to be scarred, what does that do? How does that change? The whole issues attached to either a disability or scars or whatever it may be. So yeah, like how that's my question actually for you guys. Like how did you feel? Like what do you think was the difference here?
For me, I feel like society is more forgiving on men than they are on women. And especially, I think in this time, I just feel like if Aline and if her accident was made known, I think she would have been shunned from society. But because she was, like, I guess in the society, she was lucky that she could hide her scars with a dress, you know? And I don't know. I just feel like it's heartbreaking to think that your worth and your, I guess, your position in society is deemed on like your appearance, but that's just the way it was back then, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
But I kind of think that for men, it was, yes, it started with the body, but it kind of went into your worth as a powerful man, type of thing. Like it kind of left the
Yeah.
realm of the body and was into like, well, you're not a strong man anymore, or you're not as powerful anymore, type of thing. Obviously that's what they thought about themselves, not what they actually are. Whereas here, for a woman, I think it stays very much entrapped in the body. It's like your whole identity, your whole worth is tied to your body. And it's not like, oh, you're a strong woman for surviving this, or like whatever. It's like,
Exactly.
no, you're
You're
unbeautiful now.
lacking something now.
Yeah, unbeautiful is
Yeah.
not a word. It should be.
No, and I agree with that, but I think going back to I don't really want to compare, but I will. But like on the males that we've talked about that have been scarred
Yeah.
versus the one woman, I do feel like you said, a lot of it is self-imposed for the males. And if they were in society, I don't think they would have been looked at much less. But they've put themselves in, like in solitude themselves, and they deem themselves unattractive or like I guess not worthy of being in society. Well, I feel like some people in society did react to their scars and like to the way that they've decided to dress, but I don't feel like we really got to did we get to see them in society, and did we get to see people's reactions minus
Some of them, yes.
yeah, some of them, but I don't know, I feel like it would be harder, I think, to be a woman and have scars, like scars on your face.
Well, especially because men have money. Women do not have money in this world. And so a man, at the end of the day, even super scarred, whatever, he could probably still get a wife. It's just that the heroes that we've read about, obviously, that like they have decided that that was, not what they were gonna want for themselves, type of thing. But
Yeah.
money speaks and they have money, whereas these heroines is like, oh no, like you're just not worth anything anymore. That's it.
Yeah, they're dependent on their male family members to give them money. So I feel like Aline, if she were to decide to go into society and find a husband, she was lucky because she had the Earl of Westcliff as her, the person funding her, basically. Um, but I just feel like, yeah, going back to Aline and her scars, I honestly feel like, yes, her self-worth took a hit because of, what she was taught and like how she was raised, but I also feel like she saw her own sister kind of turn away and like, kind of not look at her scars. Her sister would like turn her head and like kind of cringe by like whenever her legs were out there. So I kind of feel like that also fueled into her own self-worth and all of that. So that's what I thought her monster was.
Did she cringe, the sister?
Yeah, she did.
She did cringe. She like turned and like kind of like went into herself.
But again, is she cringing because she thinks it looks bad, or which is probably what Aline was thinking, but maybe she's cringing because she can feel the pain that her sister probably went through. Like it's always a question of perspective, and Aline is probably thinking one thing and maybe Olivia is thinking another thing completely.
That is so true. I didn't even think of it that way, but yeah. Yeah.
As for McKenna, obviously there's the whole idea that he wasn't raised in a powerful, rich English family. He was a stable boy who came from nothing and, made himself into a powerful man. And yet, throughout the story, especially when he's interacting with Gideon's family, it's very clear that it doesn't matter to anyone whether he has money or not. Just the fact that he doesn't have a powerful name attached to his own means that he's beneath people. Like, that is the thing that follows him no matter what. And obviously it was part of his monster because that's the thing that Aline uses to hurt him, because she knows that that's the one thing that he really struggles with. It's where it all began for him and how it will end, like he'll never be enough for this goddamn society.
He won't. And like I think it even further proves with Gideon's sister like fully calling him out and insulting him at like the dinner table. And it's just like he'll like it's something that'll always follow him despite him making so much money. And like it's just like it's heartbreaking.
It's
exactly. It'll never be enough. And like I also feel like this kind of works for Olivia as well, this monster of like society and classism and social class and all of that, and just like society in general, because like yes, she lost her social standing and like her position in society because of her past. She got pregnant from her fiance, the man that she was going to marry, but yet she got shunned from society because she was pregnant from the man she was going to marry and because he died. And it's just like it's so confusing to me. It's so like it's so annoying because like she was going to marry the man and sadly he died. Why should she be like punished for that?
Yeah. For Olivia, there's also a part of like accepting that there is a life beyond grief, and beyond scandal. Obviously, I think that part of her story was making the choice to finally move on from that and become who she was meant to be and who she really wanted to be. Which is a scary step to take, but she did take it, and for her, it went all the way to not accepting Gideon and not wanting to see Gideon destroy himself slowly but surely, so I really liked that part of it just because it's just so relatable. I feel like.
Did you have any for McKenna or Olivia S? I feel like we kind of just like we jumped to Olivia.
I feel like, I only have monsters for Aline and McKenna, but they're around this. It's the same thing that you guys said. Like for Aline, was her self-consciousness of what happened to her with the fire in her legs, and I feel like she let that dictate her life for a long time.
She did.
And then for McKenna, his monster, I feel like, was him not feeling like he was and will never be good enough for Aline, just because of what she has said in the past, what she ended up saying again towards the end to kind of like break things off, and then what everybody around society has said, has said to him.
I did like that Aline at least had one outlet, and that being her friend. What was his name? Adam. I'll just call him Adam. His name is Adam. I love that she had that outlet, and I love that, like, he was kind of her sounding board in certain instances, and he's like, girl, go get that D. Like, you want him, go get it. Find a way to make it happen. And, like, I love that, like, she just had that. She had that person to go to.
I wish we could know what happened to Adam.
I wish he would get a book.
I hope he, like, found someone. He found some kind of arrangement that worked out for everyone involved.
Yeah.
For Gideon, I mean, obviously there was the alcoholism, but I think the true monster for him is not so much the alcoholism as it is getting himself out of it's the same as Livia, essentially. Getting yourself out of a situation that you know is detrimental to yourself and your happiness.
Yeah.
And actually taking those steps for yourself and deciding to move on and become, a better person, or like, work on a better version of yourself type of thing.
I agree with that.
I think both of them, that was the crux of it for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I also feel like for him, he spent a lot of his life feeling unlovable, inferior to his, like, I guess, his family, even his brother that died. And even, like, that intense grief of losing his child, but also his brother that I think he even said he was really close with. And, like, it's just, like, he has so much that happened to him in his past. And like you said, he needed to get out of it. And needed that extra push. So, yeah.
All right. Do we want to talk about Westcliff?
Not with that attitude.
So Westcliff, he's in this book. He's also the hero of book 2. It happened one autumn. It's Steph's favorite book in the series, favorite hero. What do you want to say, Steph? Come on. You have 5 minutes to fangirl.
I literally have he's hot, ... tis all.
You don't need 5 minutes.
One thing that peeved me so much in this book, and they kept mentioning it, that he wasn't attractive. He is so hot in my mind, let me tell you. Like, it wasn't, like, I think it was mentioned, like, 2 or 3 times, like, oh, he wasn't, like, attractive, but, like, he was, like, built and, like, robust and, like, blah, 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 blah. But anyways, he was hot.
He's a beefy dude.
Yeah, he is muscular, and I love it.
I think what she meant is, like, you live in a world of McKennas and Sebastians who are literally described like gods. I think Marcus is attractive, but unconventionally. Like, I don't think he's got, like, the beautiful handsomeness of, like, the other guys. He's a little rougher looking.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. He's more rugged.
Yeah. How do you feel about Westcliff S? Because I remember how you felt about him after your first read. She didn't like him very much. She didn't think he was very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't care for I didn't care enough to continue to read his book.
Fight!
But
we're
not talking
fight.
we're talking about this second time of me reading it, and yeah, I'm excited to read his book.
Okay, good to know. Can I also just say you gave me 5 minutes, so I'm gonna continue.
Okay.
I just loved how we got to see him not as like a romantic lead, but like as a brother, as like a family member, as like someone that someone can go to. Like, he was such a supportive brother, and like he loved his sisters so much, and he just wanted them to be happy, and like he would do whatever it took to make them happy. And like, I just loved how supportive and loving and caring he was despite his upbringing. Like, his father sounded like a nightmare. He was sent off to boarding school at such a young age, and like he missed so much of his sisters' lives, and it's just like, how does this man become so perfect?
Didn't he try to sabotage?
Well, yeah, but
sisters?
Like, then he invested anyway. So like,
Yeah. No, but then he kind of woke up and he's like, actually, you're right. I'm kind of turning into my dad, so I don't want that to ever happen.
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna help you guys.
I think this book does a wonderful job of setting up his character, actually, because like you said, Marcus is actually a really deeply caring character. He's literally throughout all the books, and that goes even into the Hathaways when he's like a little bit older. I mean, obviously, even in the Raven House, like he's always the one character who, when you need someone and you need money or you needed someone to invest or whatever, he's there. He will give you the money. I feel like no one appreciates that about him enough because he's always there. You know, he'll have your back.
Yeah, if I need help with anything, if I feel like I was gonna die, I would run to him and be like, Westcliff, I need your help. Marcus, help me. And you know what? He would.
He would.
I mean, I'd already be married to him, so I wouldn't have to reach too far.
I also love how, and before I go into my next point, this also like plays a role into his own book, you know, and how he is with Lillian and Daisy. Like he kind of acts as like a, I don't know, like he tries to better their situation.
I can't wait till we get to talking about his story and just like, I don't know, I'm just excited to hear like your thoughts, S, and I want to know if they change, and even you, I want to know everything.
But also like this book does such a good job of setting up his annoyance for Americans.
Right?
Definitely comes into play.
I literally have a note. I was like, isn't it funny? Hold on. I was like, isn't it funny that all the Marsden siblings end up with Americans?
True.
Despite him
Marcus,
not liking Americans.
Yeah. He's so annoyed by them, but then like he's gonna end up with an American heiress. Look at that.
I know. I love it.
Side note, someone else who makes an appearance in this book, well, an appearance he's mentioned, Rutledge. Rutledge is mentioned in this book. He is a future hero, from the Hathaway series. Harry, hat, hotel owner. Love that.
I don't remember no Rutledge, but okay, I'm excited.
Once we get to our Hathaway series, you'll know him. He's
a lot of people don't like him, but I like him for the reasons that people don't like him.
He was hot. Anyways, continuing on.
Yeah, so anyway, I just noticed that and I was like, "Oh wow, he was already a thing back in the Wallflowers."
Yeah.
Did she write the Wallflowers first or no, she definitely did. So like he was already part of her plan, her master plan, her grand plan. I hope there's never a finale. I just hope she continues writing these books forever. Forever and ever.
I'm ready to read about Westcliff and St. Vincent in their 90s.
Yes! Yes!
They could still get it.
Okay, no questions, but are we gonna do the...
No, I can't. Don't make me do that.
Yes, we are. We love the pain. Yes, we are. Seth, I'm sorry, but we are. Yes. Yes.
It just won't work because I love everyone. That's the point. That's the problem, is I love everyone. That's why it's one of my favorite series ever. Spoiler.
Which is why
we're not gonna do this.
We're gonna do
Why'd you have to bring it up? As you're like that one student that like asks if you have homework and then you make us have homework.
You shouldn't have asked me if I had any fun questions.
Seth, what's your rating? What's your order?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well I didn't do it, but obviously I'd have Gideon and then McKenna first. Right? Are we doing it like that? And then for the females, I'd have Olivia and then Aline first.
Yeah, mine would be the same.
Mine would be reversed.
Ooh, interesting. She's already starting to be different. I'm telling you, Westcliff and Sebastian are not going to be her favorite.
No, I know it's going to be Matthew for sure. Like,
it's going to be
Matthew or Simon.
Rafe. She'll go for freaking Rafe.
Who's Rafe? Oh, Rafe, yes. She would probably get
Christmas Rafe.
We'll see. Sorry, so can you say yours, S? So it was reversed for both or just the females?
Reverse for both, yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Huh.
Interesting.
All right.
Well, it definitely explains why you wanted more Gideon and Olivia when you read this the first time around. All right. Well, this is it for the first episode in our Wallflower read-along series. I hope you enjoyed it. you can let us know how you feel about this book by reaching us online. On Twitter, we are the RTM Pod. On Instagram, it's Romancing the Monsters Podcast. You can also email us at romancingthemonsterspodcast@gmail.com. And we are on TikTok at Romancing the Monsters Pod. If you want to find me specifically, you can also find me at Foes and Lovers.
And you can find me on both Instagram and Twitter at But This Book.
And you can find me, Seth, on both Instagram and Twitter at Pose with Woes. And also, it would mean a lot to us if you could leave a rating or review on any of the podcast platforms. It'd mean the world to us, and we just would appreciate if you do that.
So obviously in 2 weeks' time, we'll be reading Secrets of a Summer Night. So if you want to get started on that, feel free to do so. Yeah, hope you will see you there. And I mean, we'll see you first next week with another episode. Don't you worry. Yeah, see you.
Bye.